Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
Big Daddy Kane just dropped a bomb about Jay-Z and Tupac that nobody saw coming. And trust, the story we've been fed ain't the whole truth. Everybody knows Kane was the one who put Jay on and gave him his first real shot. That's facts. No debate. Back then, Jay was just a hungry young MC freestyling on stage, rocking with Kane's crew in their cypher, trying to get noticed. But here's where it gets wild. As Jay blew up, Kane's name started vanishing from the story like he was never part of it. And now Kane's latest words even link back to Tupac. See, while Kane was holding it down for Jay-Z in the East, Pac was already clapping back, taking shots at the fake players in the game, calling out the industry. And yeah, throwing shade straight at Jay too. So what's Kane really hinting at here? Did Jay-Z snatch more than just inspiration from him and Pac? Did he climb to the top by stepping over their names and never looking back? Let's dig into it. When Jay-Z was still just a nobody in the early 90s, Big Daddy Kane came through and took him on tour during his Chocolate City run. Kane let Jay spit freestyles on stage while he switched outfits backstage. That was prime shine for Jay, but it didn't stop there.
Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all.
Kane even helped shop Jay's demo, recording tracks and sending them out to major labels, trying to get him signed. And here's the kicker. According to Kane, pushing Jay wasn't easy at all. Labels just weren't feeling Jay's style back then. Can you believe that? Even though those labels kept passing on Jay, Kane never stopped believing he'd grow into his own. And he was right. But this is where the story gets messy. Kane's fingerprints are all over Jay's early, fast-paced, smooth but aggressive flow. No question about it. Yet, when you look at Jay-Z's later interviews, documentaries, and the whole public story, that bond with Kane barely even gets a mention. In his memoir, Decoded, Jay does give Kane a quick shout, saying he learned about pacing and stage presence from him. But that's it. Just a tiny nod, no real gratitude, no deep respect shown. And Kane peeped the silence too.
That if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Then came the whispers. Folks started saying Jay might have even thrown shade at Kane on his track Do It Again. That line where Jay spits, "I seen the same ish happen to Kane. 3 cuts in your eyebrows trying to wild out." Yeah, that. Everybody knew Kane made those 3 eyebrow slits his signature look back in the late 80s and early 90s. It was iconic, his whole vibe. So when Jay, who came up under Kane, dropped that line with a sharp, cold tone, a lot of people took it as a slick diss. By that point in the late 90s, Kane's shine had already faded and younger cats were taking over the scene. So hearing Jay, who Kane mentored and once admired him, seemingly clown him on Do It Again, fans and even Angie Martinez reportedly pointed it out on her show, calling it out as disrespectful. Ain't no denying, that line stung. That line only fueled the rumor mill even more, even though Kane later played it cool and brushed it off in public. But when you mix that with Jay-Z's well-known competitive streak, things start looking shady. Jay himself admitted he used to watch Kane real close backstage, studying his every move. But as Jay morphed into his gangster hustler persona, Kane quietly stepped back, letting him shine and build his own lane. But now, years later, Kane can't help but wonder, did Jay push him out of the picture on purpose? And here's where it gets even crazier. Kane wasn't the only one feeling some type of way. Around the same time Kane was stepping back, Tupac was stepping up. And he was already calling out the shady industry games Kane is now talking about. Kane hints that Pac peeped the shift early. From real artists with substance and style to a new breed of rappers chasing clout, money, and power.
Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
And you already know one name that started coming up heavy back then. Jay-Z. Way back in the day, whispers floated that Jay felt threatened by Pac. Like deep down, he knew he couldn't match Pac's wild charisma. Jay had bars and slick wordplay, no doubt. But Pac had that raw energy, that untouchable star power you can't teach, and it all came to a head. Jay and Pac really did have beef right before Pac's tragic death. It popped off when Jay linked with Biggie to throw shots at the West Coast. Jay and Big, both from Bed-Stuy, got tight in the early 90s, and by 96 they dropped Brooklyn's Finest, taking aim at the other side. One of the most explosive tracks on Reasonable Doubt was Brooklyn's Finest, but that collab lit the whole fuse. Irv Gotti, who was tight with Jay at the time, even warned him not to bring Biggie onto that record. The East Coast versus West Coast beef was already spiraling out of control, and Irv knew adding more heat could blow up in Jay's face fast. Now here's the backstory. Pac and Biggie actually started out real cool, almost like brothers. But things got real dark in '94 when Pac was shot 5 times during a robbery at Quad Studios. Pac was convinced Biggie and Diddy knew something about the setup but stayed quiet, and that felt like the ultimate betrayal to him. Biggie, for his part, always denied knowing anything about it, said he had nothing to do with the hit. But after that Quad Studio shooting, all bets were off. Pac and Big started taking shots at each other publicly. Not long before Jay dropped Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie released Who Shot Ya, which many believed was aimed at Pac. By then, East Coast versus West Coast tensions were already past the boiling point.
Easy. I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you was shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, Jay, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
That's exactly why Irv Gotti begged Jay to hold off on dropping that track with Big, but Jay ignored the advice and dropped it anyway. And that move, it only made things uglier. In his verse on Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie took clear shots at Pac, calling him his son, and even throwing shade about the rumors of Pac and Faith Evans. That verse had everybody talking, and the beef just got even nastier. After that, Pac started unloading shots at Jay-Z on tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and F Friends. Fans were hyped, waiting for Jay to clap back with a full-on diss track, but he never got the chance. Just weeks later, Pac was gunned down in that infamous Las Vegas drive-by. But here's the wild twist. Jay did write a response track called Scathing, and word is it was vicious, a brutal diss aimed straight at Pac, but he held it back, supposedly because he didn't want to pour gas on the fire while Pac was still breathing. Not many folks know that part. After Pac's death, though, Jay actually performed that track live at the Apollo. According to DJ Clark Kent, the song was savage, full of heat, and Jay delivered it like he had something heavy on his chest he needed to unload. He was moving like a man with a chip on his shoulder, finally letting it all out.
I remember actually having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
But that begs the question, why wait till Pac was gone to spit it? Well, rumors been flying for years that Jay felt low-key relieved when Pac died. Folks say he always felt overshadowed by Pac's presence, like he knew he could never outshine that raw legend. Matter of fact, Diddy's former bodyguard Gene Deal even claimed Jay was so shook of Pac at one point, he refused to leave his Vegas hotel room for a show, just because Pac and his crew were in town. That's why a lot of fans started calling Jay sneaky for never stepping to Pac directly while he was alive, but still throwing shade later. The truth is, Jay and his East Coast crew stayed throwing slick, subliminal shots, poking at Pac because they knew he'd bite back.
You got to go back to Brooklyn's Finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man.
Folks who were around back then say Jay was straight up jealous of Pac's natural charisma. No matter how sharp Jay's rhymes were, he knew he couldn't touch Pac's raw energy and star power. Even Nas later dropped some tea in an interview, saying Jay was bitter about both Pac and Biggie's shine. Nas told Vibe, "We were kicking it and he told me he's better than Biggie. I looked at him like he was bugging." Then he got even crazier and said Tupac and DMX weren't even lyricists. Nas told him straight up he disagreed, saying flat out that Tupac was the greatest ever, period. But that's not the only reason fans started calling Jay a snake. There's also how he stayed tight with Diddy, even after whispers linked Diddy to Pac's murder. Crazy, right? After both Pac and Big were gone, Diddy started hyping Jay up, calling him the one who stepped into their shoes. And through all the wild rumors about Diddy over the years, Jay never cut ties. He stood right by his side, all the way up to the 2023 Cassie lawsuit that blew everything sky high. And now, out of nowhere, Jay acting brand new, claiming he and Diddy were never even friends, like all those years never happened. So what's the real takeaway here? How does Jay go from jealous subliminals to claiming he's better than legends, to riding with Diddy through scandals, only to deny him when things get messy? People still asking questions, and the questions just keep stacking up.
Yeah, I think Pac was more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie and him, whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac was upset.
Because even beyond Diddy, Jay's whole climb to the top got folks side-eyeing him for how he moved with people who helped him early on. Let's talk about Dame Dash, the man who co-founded Rockefeller with Jay and helped build his empire from the ground up. Back in the 90s, Dame was riding hard for Jay, risking it all to get him signed, push his music, and fight for his respect in the game. For a minute, they were the ultimate duo, hustling shoulder to shoulder and shutting everybody else out. But once the money got bigger and the corporate deals started rolling in, Jay slowly froze, Dame out. People close to them said Jay started making moves behind Dame's back, taking meetings, cutting deals, and painting Dame as the problem just to push him out of Rockefeller. And when it finally blew up, Jay came out looking squeaky clean while Dame got painted like the bitter, angry one, the fall guy. Even Dame himself said in interviews, Jay was always calculated. He'll smile at you while he's plotting his next move. That's just who he is.
What Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's finest. If they have twins, you probably have two Pacs. Get it? Two Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you, ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
Fans still debate if Jay had to do Dame dirty to level up, or if Dame just couldn't play the corporate game. But one thing is clear. After Rockefeller split, Jay walked away with the full crown and never looked back. And then there's Beanie Siegel, another Rockefeller soldier who swore Jay turned his back on him when he caught a case and needed help the most. So when you add up Pac, Kane, Dame, Beanie, and even Diddy, you start seeing a pattern. Jay always keeps his hands clean while everybody else takes the fall. What does that say about him? And if you thought it stopped there, nah, it gets even deeper. Another name folks bring up when talking about Jay's cutthroat moves is Foxy Brown. Back in the late 90s, Foxy and Jay were unstoppable. She was his protege, his rumored flame, and they even dropped that iconic Ain't No track together.
Because before he performed the record, he was like, yo, no disrespect to the dead, but you just can't say whatever to me.
Oh, so he actually performed it after Pac passed?
Yeah. Yeah, we was at the Apollo. It was, I will say this, if you can find anybody who was at that show And the Apollo was packed. They will tell you that it was absolutely crazy, the things he was saying. I was like, Lord Jesus. Like when you know when you hear something, it's one thing, but then when you hear it performed, it's like, jeez. It was super tough.
At one point, Foxy was one of the hottest in the game, and people assumed Jay would ride with her forever. But as soon as her legal troubles and health issues started making headlines, Jay was nowhere to be seen. Foxy herself even hinted at feeling abandoned, saying in an old interview, "People show you who they are when things get rough. That's all I'ma say." Then there's Memphis Bleek, the loyal little bro who Jay always kept around but never truly let shine. Bleek stayed holding Jay down, playing hype man, and even defending him publicly when beefs popped off. But after a while, fans started realizing Bleek's career never really took off, and some even called him a pawn in Jay's game.
The story is that Jay was gonna try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now, and they wasn't gonna let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't gonna come out the hotel. He was gonna miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared of the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clearance.
It's wild because Jay always surrounded himself with talent. People like Foxy, Bleek, Beans, Dame. But somehow, he's the only one who made it to billionaire status, while everyone else faded or fell out with him. And then there's Rihanna. Yeah, even Riri's come up got tangled in whispers about Jay's intentions. While he did help her career take off, folks wondered if he kept control over her moves a little too tight before she broke free and became her own boss. So with all these stories stacking up, Kane, Pac, Dame, Beans, Foxy, Bleek, even Rihanna, people can't help but ask, is Jay just smart? Or is he cold-blooded? And just when you think you've heard it all, there's still more smoke around Jay's name. Another chapter in this saga comes from his longtime rivalry with 50 Cent. Back in the early 2000s, when 50 came on the scene with How to Rob and Get Rich or Die Trying, he made waves fast, taking aim at everybody, including Jay. At first, Jay played it cool, dropping slick bars here and there, but never fully engaging. But behind the scenes, folks say Jay was trying hard to block 50's moves. There were whispers that Jay used his industry clout to keep 50 off certain stages and away from big opportunities while he was still rising. 50 himself even said in an interview,
"You filled them shoes though. You came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in and I just know how much Big like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like two people, because that's all it was those two people, and they had like the game. They had things on lock. Hov was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hov really kept Hov kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, take it even higher.
Jay was uncomfortable when I came around. You could feel it. He'd act like it was all love, but you could tell he didn't want me taking that spot. And let's not forget the tension with Drake. When Drake started dominating charts and headlines, Jay threw subtle shots on tracks like Pound Cake and Light Up. Drake later called him out, saying Jay was insecure about him being the next king. These younger cats, 50, Drake, they all noticed the same pattern. Jay playing nice in public, but working behind the curtain to stay on top. Even Kanye West, once Jay's golden student, eventually called him out. Ye said Jay didn't back him up during tough times and only reached out when it helped Jay's own image. So whether it's old school legends like Kane and Pac, loyal crew like Dame and Bleek, or new blood like 50, Drake, and Kanye, everybody got the same story. Jay smiles in your face, but keeps his crown by any means. Big Daddy Kane hinting at betrayal and disappointment, Tupac's warnings, and Jay-Z's shady moves behind the scenes. It all paints a picture of a man who didn't just borrow flows, but carefully stepped over mentors and rivals alike to build his empire. As talented as he is, more and more of Jay's peers are speaking up, saying his legacy is drenched in cold calculation and quiet betrayal. But what do you think? Was Jay-Z just playing the game smart, or did he cross a line? Did he really turn his back on Kane after blowing up? And what about all that talk of him being jealous of Tupac? Does it change how you see him? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear everything you got to say. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you're rocking with this story. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.